So our next speaker is Marcus Swan. Marcus is a Dublin-based designer working across and through a range of interconnected disciplines and through the stage nearly as well. And he's going to talk to us about Back to the Future.
Might need to rewind that, jump up on the stage and do it a little better. I know it says Back to the Future. This might be a little bit more Rick and Morty than Doc and Marty, because it's hopefully going to be funny and maybe a little bit, cause some existential crisis at the end of the night about, what we do as designers and where design is going. I've been very, very fortunate to work on a smorgasbord of ridiculously, kind of diverse projects, everything from, launching startups to doing logos for individual artists, and I suppose my approach to design has always been that it's this weird soft mix of art and science and strategy, and it's never one thing at any one time. And I've kind of found recently though that we're getting a little bit caught up in the tools that we use, and all of our work is getting kind of moved from all these lovely hand done things that I used to do in college to I could have done this whole thing on my phone. Some quotes: every human being is a designer. I love the fact that this is a really complex map of where all of these things might happen, and this is a maybe ridiculously kind of complicated picture of the current landscape of design. We're all in the same field, but we're carving things up maybe a little bit too fine, and maybe we're going to run out of potatoes someday, and again we're kind of boiling ourselves down into these very tool-based things. Yes, memes make people laugh. That's awesome. I hate wireframes, and this kind of quote, about disciplinary barriers that are maybe stopping different design disciplines from talking to each other or understanding what they do. I get asked, what do I do as a designer on my product, on my UX, on my UI, and I just go, yes. Some of the things that we're going to start facing, all of the speakers that have kind of spoke so far have kind of touched on this, is like, what do we do when we have a product problem that has no UX solution? Because there's people like this in the world that you just have no, my imagination is pretty good, but I can never imagine that someone would do something like this with something that I've designed. So experience is in the eye of the beholder. The difference between these two icons is a fold, but it's actually 20 hours of kind of support calls because people are tearing labels off products that I've designed, and the lab or the APIs can't read the stuff because of that fold and that icon. This whole talk is actually kind of come about because I was working with another designer, and I understand that people approach design in different ways, and there's lots of different ways that people can approach it, but he didn't know who Paul Rand was. That's like not knowing who John Lennon or Paul McCartney is. I literally had a book on my desk. It was like, Paul Rand, never heard of this guy. Who is he? I was like, what? Oh, that just like completely blew my mind. And everybody loves IBM. You can't get good design as good business without Paul Rand doing, kind of cheesy 1950s, kind of modernist ads for Coronet, highballs. There is a path between those two things. Again, Jack Schultz from Berg, design is about cultural invention. It's not really about solving problems. People come to me with problems as a designer, and sometimes their problems are kind of irrelevant. Like RTE asked us, can we have a website for some podcasts and things? And we said, well, why don't we do something that's actually culturally relevant? And they went, okay, that's cool. We don't really understand what we're asking for or what you're going to do, but let's try and do it. So we did. And actually, instead of a website, we did them some posters. And this had way more impact than a website would ever have, because it was around the city and people, talked about it. It was really, really interesting. We did do them a website, and it's still up there and it works and it's cool. I don't think you can play the videos anymore. But the website did what it needed to do. It was just that was the barrier for entry that we needed to, kind of hurdle with them. But actually, what we did with the posters was actually have an event. And again, it's about cultural invention. We said, well, really people going to be interested in looking at a website? Would people not maybe want to come and talk about their experiences with, you know, World War One and how it affected Ireland as a country? And I suppose finishing off with a quote, Jesus, that was quick, from like a 87-year-old graphic designer. He wrote this like maybe 15 years ago, and you could probably put that on the front of any UX or, you know, product design book, and it'd be relevant. And thank you, I'm out of time. I'm not going to fall off the stage on the way off. Thank you.
Thanks, Marcus.